welcome back to Career Goals. Today I'm joined by guest Ross McWilliam, who's the founder of Mindset Pro. How are you today?
I'm fine. Had a nice trip in through the taxi, thank you very much. Decaf coffee, super. Being looked after fantastically.
Amazing. Did you get in okay?
Perfect. Nice taxi, thank you very much.
No, that's not a problem at all. So just for the viewers at home, can you just explain a little bit about what Mindset Pro is?
Yeah, very simply, help people to improve their performance in life, whether that's in career, relationships, personal goals, and that could be group or individual coaching.
Oh, amazing. So, because you do your webinars, I know you do your webinars for Kaplan. What do you do aside from that?
Yeah, online training has become more prolific these days, so I do some mental health training online through Mental Health First Aid. I do some coaching online, different people. I'd like to say around the world, but I have people in different countries, but not universal just yet. And essentially, you know, different ways to engage with people. But I do prefer face-to-face, like we are now.
So you speak about adaptability via resilience. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, resilience is like a buzzword. It's been around for a long time, but it seems to be, in times of crisis, the pandemic or wars or personal challenges, you've got to have more resilience. And I often say to people, what about having less resilience? Might make you more effective. There's a guy called Dr. Rick Hansen, who writes lots of books on resilience, and he said, not very often it's about giving you 100% surviving something. Maybe for the SES it is, but for day-to-day life, it's for like thriving during the day. So if we say you must be more resilient to keep going, to bounce back, to keep pushing, you might win a few wars, yeah, but you're going to lose in the end because your body's going to not keep up with yourself. So I don't like resilience. I think there's a caveat to that. So I'd like be adaptable. How can I adapt to that stress that I'm struggling to cope with? So when I adapt, I might take a step back. I might reflect. I might go straight into the challenge. I can do this. Take 2, take 3. I can do it. But I've got to work out how I'm feeling at that time and what resources and support I've got around me. When you're adaptable with that awareness, the 2 ways, I think you become much more an effective professional, an effective human being, and hopefully, if you've got a family, supporting your family more effectively as well.
Yeah, so it's like that idea of instead of having to bounce back from something, learn to live with.
Yeah, or even, you know, taking a cue out from mental health, when to be vulnerable. You know, you can't, vulnerability is good, but you can't be vulnerable 24/7 with everybody you meet. You've got to be careful who you're vulnerable with, but I think the ability is to share with somebody in a moment how you're feeling for the next few weeks, something on the horizon that's bugging you. Someone to have your back and be really on Team Ross is such a powerful quality that can make people raise the game beyond what they thought was the limit. And I think in professional world, if you've got somebody who's got your back like that, you can get levels of career goals that you never thought were possible.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so we saw on your website that you're the man who changed 1 million lives.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that is it. When somebody put it to me a few years ago, I thought, that's not me, it's too big-headed. But then they said, okay, but you've worked for like 30 odd years with different people, from education to professional sport to all the freelance work I do with corporates and schools, and I've probably been to 1,500 schools in the last 30 years, worked with 500 companies. I write books for children's mindset, the webinars with Kaplan. Maybe, you know, probably, I've worked with towards 1 million people and I'm not finished yet. So if you're saying to me you're not there yet, Ross, I'll say that's fine. I'll just keep going till I do hit it. And it's just an imaginary target. And what it's trying to do is saying that, you know, it's not about me. It's about supporting other people, and they won't forget you when that's all over.
Yeah, and there's like a form of domino effect as well. Like if you help one person, they go on to like pay it forward, even if it's subconscious. Like it'll expand.
Yeah, I think you want to spread, I don't like the word magic, but you want to spread your personality around in a good way. And when you can see the ability to support somebody else, just in a nice way, they might not need desperate support, nice friendly encounter. And I suppose I get it from my parents, where if my dad met someone for the first time, he wouldn't say, what do you do, how much money you've got? He'd say, how do you feel today? How's it going? And he's just interested in somebody else. So if you want to spread that, not just kindness, that connection with people, just be interested, authentically interested in somebody else with no agenda.
So, we're going to find out a little bit more about you by playing a game of Never Have I Ever. Have you ever played the game before?
I don't think I have.
Okay, so you just need a paddle. What I'll do is I'll just read out a statement. If you've done it, you just say I have. If you haven't, then it's I haven't. So, never have I ever been fired. You have?
Yeah. Preston North End. I think 5 has got fired on the same day. A changeover of the media provision at the club, and so we were an expenditure and we got let go. But it was okay. It wasn't at the time, but it's great now. It was a nice stepping stone to what I'm doing today.
So what was you doing there?
Commercial manager at Preston North End for 5 years.
Okay.
So basically that means doing every job under the sun there, communicating with the fans, selling seats and hosting matches. And it developed that, so as I said, that flair for engaging with people and wanting to understand more about them, being interested in them. So it was bad at the time, but it happens all the time in football.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, all the time. There's no interviews for football, many jobs, and you can let go just like that. No matter how good you are, you're on a commodity.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. So, are you a Preston fan?
I go on and watch them, but sometimes we watch the match.
Okay, next one is never have I ever made a work mistake that's impacted my team.
That's a good question. I probably have at some point, but being 62, I've made lots of mistakes. The secret is to learn from them, isn't it? And if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again, that's when they call you a fool, and that's when you lose your job. That didn't apply to me in the Preston North End one, for instance. But I think you've got to be aware, and that I often talk about reflection, and you want a fancy word, metacognition, thinking about thinking. So not to overanalyze, not to dwell, but think about what happened today, how could you improve things. And I think that's a good skill that anybody can use. You don't have to be proverbially clever to use it.
Yeah, oh, that's a good answer. And then last one, never have I ever lost important work documents.
I don't think I haven't. I like to think I'm well organised. And obviously it's an important document, whatever company you're working for. So I like to be well organised, yeah. Back up things and stuff like that. And
See,
yeah.
I'm not organised at all. Like, say if I'm, I work chaotically. So like, say if I've got, unless it's Google Drive where it's just backed up automatically, I can work on something, and if I don't send it out straight away, that's that. Like, I'll never see it again. I'm really bad for it. What we're going to do is just move over to industry myths, and I'll read out a statement and you just let me know whether you think it's a myth or true, and then we'll just get your opinion on it. So, remote workers can't experience workplace stress.
I think they probably experience more stress from being at work. It came out of the blue, didn't the pandemic, and people thought, great, working from home. But I think it can quickly turn into pressure. And I think very quickly then, especially in mental health, that could be something that's happening that you're not fully aware of the implications of that. So I think there's more pressure at home. And I've got to work sometimes at home. I was doing some work yesterday, and the pressure to sit down and produce 4, 5, 6 hours, something like that, I know when I can't do it, and I'm much sharper these days. I don't beat myself up. I get out of the house, I might go somewhere else, but I might do something completely different. But I don't see it as a weakness, I see it as a strength, and I recognise that. That's the awareness.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I think at first, especially with the pandemic, like it was more of a novelty staying at home, but then that lack of like social interaction and stuff, it can really get to you. Like I'm personally more productive at home usually, but then it can get like boring, and then like
I think work provides lots of different functions, gives us purpose, gives us money, it gives us friendships. And I read somewhere that 40% of people hook up through work, you know, so relationships, wherever that goes on to marriage or partners or whatever. So I think there's an important construct there to remember, that social interaction, that engagement is massive.
Do you think it's important for people to consider that when applying for jobs or being offered jobs, like considering that lack of human interaction if they go from remote?
Yeah, I think we're getting better, broadly speaking, at wanting that sort of hybrid approach, that some at home and then some in the office. I think that's a perfect combination, because you can, as you said in your words, you can work really hard at home, But if you had to do that every single day, that work performance would drop off. So if you go into work, and it's not just about the socialisation, it's about sharing ideas and feeding off each other. A lot of people learn through maybe training, which I do, but that's only a small percentage. Most people learn on the job in situ in a company, and they learn, well, I won't do that again, I'll do more of this. So it's a very much, it helps the company when you're together.
Yeah, I completely agree there. The next one is apprenticeships offer less support for mental health.
It's a very general question, and I don't want to give you a general answer. I think it could be true, that question could be true for any situation, not just apprenticeships. It depends on the organisation, depends on the person as well, if they're searching for some support, some help. And I think the good organisations I work with, they have this well-being, this mental health, this in place in the company, mainly through HR, but they reach out to all the employees, and I think that's really important, and I think that's been one of the few good things of the pandemic that made us more aware of the need for well-being. So I think that's a positive that's come out of it. But I think, going back to your original question, apprenticeships, I'm not too sure. It's up to the organisation really, and I think you'd be a fool as an organisation not to cater for that aspect of it, because it's actually what Stephen Covey calls a win-win situation. Both parties win if you're looking after somebody's well-being.
Yeah, no, I agree. And say, because obviously there is a stereotype that apprentices are usually like younger, at Kaplan that's not necessarily the case, but say younger people, do you think that they're taken as seriously in terms of like workplace stress or any like problems with the mental health?
No, you get caught up in a historical, cultural sort of stigma about it. Come on, just suck it up, get on with it, man up and all that sort of stuff, which is changing. And it's an interesting concept, isn't it? You know, I think we need to develop resilience, the ability to improve, to thrive and survive sometimes. But if you go too much down that road, you can actually break, which we don't want people to do. So we want people to test themselves, but you also want that security, that safety blanket as well. So if you know somebody's got your back and the company wants you to be successful, then I think that's where mental health and well-being fits into your job profile.
So do you have any advice for, say, Kaplan learners and apprentices who are going into accounting and finance, which is traditionally known to be quite a stressful field? Do you think it lives up to those expectations?
Yeah, I don't like the word advice, because that says that I've got something you need. But I think as an observation, I think, you know, accountancy is very specific, and you've got to pass the test to go further. And if you don't pass the test, then you don't go further. So there's a pressure innately in that organisation. And having worked with Kaplan for a number of years, a lot of the things we talk about in Mind Fitness is that confidence, that resilience, that stress, how to deal with it. And that's all well and good. So I think there is more potentially within the accountancy side of things, but it's all about bringing that whole self to work, and that person who doesn't metaphorically kill themselves for the end goal of being successful to become an accountant. You've got to enjoy and learn from the journey as well as that destination. So if you can get a good, well-balanced approach, and I know at Kaplan they do this, so as the employer they've got that in place, it's up to you as an individual then to actually seek out that support, to be vulnerable, to talk to people, to learn about yourself more, and building that narrative in your head that this is all part of my learning journey. We'll have some resilience, but I'm not going to go anywhere near breaking because nobody wins. So I think there can be with the apprenticeships, but I think you're in a good organisation with Kaplan.
Yeah, and have you ever noticed, like, because obviously you train so many people of different ages and backgrounds and stuff, do you change the kind of tips or information that you give to them depending on the audience?
Yeah, well, I was doing some work with some teachers last week, and they wanted something specifically for mental health around young children, so 11 to 16 secondary school. So we talk about mental health, how prevalent it can be, and it's more prevalent with younger people. So half of mental health challenges happen before 14, and 75% at age 24. So if you can get past age 24, you've got less than 25% chance of developing a mental health challenge that could end up in a diagnosis. So it is more relevant to younger people because we're more vulnerable at a younger age. You can't control your parents, your upbringing to a certain extent, your education, your experience and interpretation of trauma. So there's lots of different things that can affect you where you feel quite vulnerable, and that's part of childhood, being vulnerable and learning. So yeah, I think mental health is everywhere, and we've all got it, and that's one of the statements I often talk about. Whether that's positive or compromised, it can change in a second sometimes.
No, definitely. We've got mental health days are just an excuse to skip work.
Well, that's the other downside of that. I was working in St Helens a few years ago, and I was talking to, and I won't tell you where, but I was talking to some of the staff, and what's your biggest challenge? He said, well, mental health challenges, when we think we know, some of them are using that as an excuse not to come, not to do an exam, to get some more time, or just to bunk off, basically. So you'll always get that side of any sort of argument, really. But what you remember is this: any with a mental health challenge, and I don't say a problem, I say a challenge, whether that's diagnosed or not, you've got to take them seriously. Because if you don't, and something bad happens, everybody again loses on that one. And it could be ultimate where somebody loses their life. So if you want someone to be engaged and to be as happy as possible, be productive, have a purpose, feel connected to your organisation, connected to your environment, connected to mankind. And I think that's really important then, to not dismiss it, they're trying to get a scam on me. Always start gentle. You can go more strict later on, but always start gentle.
What would you suggest for people who need a mental health day but might not feel comfortable talking to their employer about it?
Yeah, people often feel vulnerable, and that's not a bad thing, but then with that vulnerability, say if I've got a mental health challenge going on, and I said, I don't really want to come to work there, I'm struggling with this, they might think, right, thanks for telling me, we might not give you promotion, we might actually look to get rid of you in the company. And as much as I'd like to think that not happening, it probably is at some level, somewhere. So it's about being brave, it's about working for the right company, and have a policy through your HR that allows you to express how you're feeling. Because everybody's emotions change, nobody's robots. And if we think we are sometimes, and we have got to act like we are, yeah, but there'll always come a payback day. And you've got to be careful that payback doesn't come with a big, heavy sort of problem attached to it.
Yeah, and then same for employers, because you did just say approach it with be caring and stuff. But say if it got to the point where an employer thought that people were taking mental health days to skive off, how would you say to approach that? Because it's a tricky one, because it might just be the case where that person is having a lot of challenges, but then...
It depends on your mental health days. Some people do it in-house. So I know a company I work with in London, and sometimes they call them mental health days, but often they call them something else, like a litter cleaning day, and then they go out to the beach together, so you can't skive off, and it's an opportunity to have conversations where you're not having conversations. So it doesn't feel like now we're sitting down and interviewed. It feels more natural and spontaneous. People can then have those conversations in a more natural environment. So I think the mental health days, if you see that as a challenge, try and do it more in-house where everybody's together, because I do think people work better when they're connected. We need our alone time, but too much alone time will get you into difficulties.
Yeah, I agree. And do you think that, say mental health first aid is important then for people to have in the business to be able to know how to approach certain situations? Yeah,
it's massive. And I did some of the courses which I currently deliver at the moment, accredited and unaccredited. So unaccredited mean by bespoke work, and I work with organisations to create their own agenda. But when I did it about 5 years ago, it made me much more aware of how we judge people by our language, by our behaviours, by our mannerisms, by our facial expressions. The face can have up to 6,000 different expressions. And I was on a course yesterday where the lady was saying we've got, from Brené Brown, 87 emotions which we can display. I can't think more than 10, but there's 87 apparently. So I think it's important that we recognise that, and as a company you've got to give the channels where people can access knowledge and information. And I think it's very important. And young people, having worked with young people for a long, long time, if you get them on the right page, most people want to learn, understand and develop and grow. That's where you get purpose. Without purpose, and I've worked with some children who are very fractured, and it wasn't their own fault, but they stopped that learning process. And in society these days, in the last 20 years, we've got to be lifelong learners. We change jobs regularly, but you've got to keep learning. At 62, I was learning yesterday. And I think it's important that you don't lose that sense of adventure and challenge and a bit of fun with it. Because if it becomes very hard to keep learning and pushing yourself, then you're actually working against yourself. You've got to make it enjoyable and see the need and enjoy that journey.
Yeah, amazing. So yeah, because I'm doing a mental health first aid course with you in about a month's time, and I'm really excited for that, like to learn more, and because I've never really looked into that side of things, but I think it's really important, especially as someone at my age and like I've studied and been through those stresses. I think it is important to kind of learn more about it every day.
Yeah, people come from it, and you've said the right things, you know, to learn more about mental health, but what people don't expect is that it will give you management skills of how to approach other people, how to listen, how not to judge them. And I think once you understand that concept, you know, that's why mental health is important, because it'll take you to so far in your professional and personal life. We haven't talked about the personal, family and relationship side of things. And if I'm ever ill, physically or mentally, there's certain people I go to because they know they won't judge me. And I have a friend called Big Nick, and every time I tell him I've got a stomach ache or something like that, or I feel a bit wobbly, he'll say, well, it's okay, Ross, you've had the test, you're doing this. He'll always give me a good, positive outcome, whereas other people would judge me. And I don't like that feeling of being judged.
Yeah, so it's about like knowing who you can trust.
Yeah, knowing trust and who's got a real empathetic view to you, with some knowledge, you know, and some ideas, but it's done in a non-threatening way. I think it's really important that we, you know, you're the problem. Well, no, you know, I'm experiencing something at the moment. I might not experience it for any length of time, but I just need someone to listen to me right now.
Yeah. How would you suggest that people who are studying, do you have any kind of tips on how they can manage their stress when studying? Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of the word stress. I know the guy who invented it, Hans Selye in 1936, talked about we need it. It enables us to take opportunities to go to work, to meet people, sports, arts, drama. So I might call it a bit of pressure, soft pressure, and then we need some pressure. But it's knowing from a day-to-day basis, week to week, you know, how am I feeling today? You know, do you feel I want to take a challenge on? Can I take it on? Can I give it justice? And I think understanding yourself is important to recognise how you're feeling and emotions in the moment. So I'd call it a bit of nice pressure, and pressure gets you from A to B. It enables us to perform. And there's lots of researchers, strange enough in America, from Stanford University, who say, you know, that it is enabling us. If you can see it as a good thing, then it will probably help you in the short and longer term. And there's been lots of research from books from Gabi Marte saying that if we're constantly stressed or pressured all the time, you might win at something, you might prove people wrong, but if you keep going like that over the years, it can have a detrimental effect on your physiological health. And there's been lots of studies saying that, for instance, people who experience cancer, when they believe that they will beat it and they've got some support and they see it as almost like an opportunity to get better, they'll take that hope and work with it. So I think the mindset linked to mental health is very powerful. And two words that I haven't mentioned yet, hope and recovery, are very important, no matter what age you are, to help you see that there is a better future if you're really struggling at this moment.
So thanks so much for joining us today. Just before we let you go, we always ask our guests, what does career goals mean to you?
If you asked me that 40 years ago, I'd say it's the essence of who we are, trying to improve yourself, not just for money, but to realise your potential. And I think, you know, realising potential in life is very important. What could I do? How could I improve? How can I support other people? And, you know, without being too morbid, I don't want to get to my coffin and go, I wish I'd done this and I wish I'd done that. So when I was younger, career goals were everything. And they're really important now, but what I've learned over the years is that it's nice to have them, but they shouldn't define you and they shouldn't drive you into an early grave. So it's good to be aspirational, but sometimes, and I'm talking from personal experience now, I can be over aspirational and I want to get somewhere and I'm very impatient sometimes. So I think they're very good to have up there, but be flexible, be versatile, And some things don't work out. It could work out for the better in different ways, and different opportunities come along. And I think you've got to be very, in terms of life, you've got to be very flexible. And I think if you can adapt, and that's probably a better word, if you can adapt to things, that's a sign of somebody who's going to enjoy life and get great rewards as well. How you adapt is really crucial. And I use that word more than resilience every day.
Amazing. So for the viewers at home, where can people find more about you and find more about Mindset Pro?
Well, I've got a few websites, a book website, cuppajourney.com. I've got a website for the business, mindsetpro.co.uk. You'll see me popping up on different webinars like the Mind Fitness stuff with Kaplan. We do that at least every month. Just get in touch, have a chat, and I'll listen.
Amazing. I do also think like it's really important to mention you should join, anyone watching should join the webinars. Like I watch them and they are really engaging and they help a lot. I know you did one on, is it Blue Monday in January? And that was really helpful. So I would definitely recommend that to anyone that's watching. But yeah, remember to like, comment and subscribe onto our YouTube channel. And thanks for watching and we'll see you again soon.